Welcome, everybody. Here we are again on Monday, lunes. Son lunes. En una pesadez para muchos de nosotros, pero yo estoy súper emocionada. Ha sido una semana. La semana antipasada, este fin de semana, ha sido súper cargado. I'm full of lots and lots of questions. We have a guest today that is going to bring a lot of light. I know that every time I hear him and I see him, I get a little bit of that light. I've been doing a lot of research very quickly on this man's walk, and man, there is not enough time. Not enough time. I need about 3 weeks. You've already seen who I'm going to bring up, but in a moment, can I ask you to celebrate someone's life for me? And our brother Alejandro is celebrating his birthday, and there he is. Alejandro, te queremos. Te amamos, a ti, a tu esposa, a tu pequeñita. Look at that beautiful family. We got you here in our heart and our soul. We are praying that today is a beautiful day for you and every day to come. We love you, man. So this show is dedicated to Alejandro and his family, who have been a blessing to my team. So for all of you that don't know Alejandro, we had him a little bit a couple of weeks back, and we talked about um, the importance of marketing, and he's the man. He's the man I hired, him and his group, Buds Ads, and soon they're coming up with a really good event, and we're all going to join them very soon. I see that some of my friends have already connected, which is like, who doesn't know my Sarita, Sarah Raskin and Polly, and my mama. Woo, that could be tough when your mama's on. But it's good to know that your mama loves you enough to be, right? Enough to be there with you. This picture that you all see here is from Bishop John Selders. This man has taken a piece of my heart with the First Lady, of course, and really challenged me, because there's been very difficult days, and he has stepped up on a mission that I took on about a year ago, 4 years ago, many people would say. But when the pandemic hit, I knew we needed to respond. I didn't know how we were going to do that, but people just like Bishop stood up. We had never had a conversation. He would tell you himself. We have never sat across of each other. We have never shared coffee, which I hope happens one day. And this had nothing to do with pandemic. We were always in similar circles and know some folks, but we were there for the same causes most of the time. And I am not easily impressed, but I do have to tell you that I thought, man, if I can get this person to spend some coffee time with me, I'm sure I'll learn a lot. So he's in the studio. He'll let me know when he is ready to talk to you all, but I want to share a couple of things with you. His bio is so impactful. And if I read the whole bio, and I say this to you all the time, hi, Kitsy, Puerto Rico's in the house, including my mom. I have to tell you that if I read his entire bio, or what I could get my hands on, we'd spend 30 minutes just on his bio. You know, he's over there in the green room saying, don't do it. But I just, but I do have to tell you that how does someone, and I was reading and watching videos, and he had a TED Talk, and other churches are bringing him on, and please speak to us. And he's been at the Women's March. We've spoken about, sexual abuse. We like been in the same arenas. And every time I hear him, it is really hard not to see the Spirit of God. And you all know that I'm a believer. And so religion has nothing to do with us. Let's be clear. I'm not into that. I'm into the love of God, and this man definitely walks the walk, and so does the First Lady. But a little bit, because, we can't be unfair. Bishop Selders, believe it or not, is also an assistant dean to Trinity College. He's also a musician, very well known, renowned, very respected, with many accolades. It runs in his veins. I will share the whole bio that I have. He's a husband, he's a grandfather, he's a parent. He is out of the box totally. I have never met someone except for Father Tom Gallagher who's willing to step out of the box and say, right is right, wrong is wrong, even if we have to walk alone sometimes. And just this past 3 months, I've had to make a really difficult decision to change locations in which I was sharing my love. My brothers and sisters are sharing it with me. And Bishop allowed me to continue to receive his love because he provides for me 5 family meals. And I'm talking, if you don't know about this, I'm talking hardcore. 5 people sit down and have meals. I don't know how many of you had the privilege of going to grandma and grandpa's house on Sundays. That's what this looks like. Okay, so they're beautiful. They're at no cost to me. They get delivered to me. But so that's love. Love is a verb, and we're going to talk to a man, okay, that is doing that day in and day out. Brave enough to talk about Black Lives Matter, brave enough to tell us we got to come to the table. And I watched a couple of videos, and there's a couple of things he said in these videos that before I bring them on, I got to tell you, find what makes you feel alive. I cried when I heard that. Find what makes you feel alive. How many of you know that? So we always have a contest here on Lily Sin Barreras because we want people to walk away with a true message and it gets you all talking. But find what makes you feel alive. Then there was another sermon that he did, and another is probably not the right transition, about being courageous. And more crying for me, but that's part of my healing. That's part of what I need to do right now. But being courageous, man, it takes a lot because you may have to make decisions that you know you have to make, but people may not walk with you. People may be angry with you. People may be confused. But Bishop has also been in places where, unless you're grandfathered in, you can't go. And he's been grandfathered in. So the picture that you see there, I think it's a picture of standing up, really standing up. But there's a lot of love and a lot of respect in the community. Fascinating for me to learn that Bishop was not a Harvey, that he was not born in the city of Hartford. To our stage, to our place, to our little humble home here, let's welcome someone who I'm definitely honored to have with us, Bishop John Selders. Bishop, thank you so much.
Thank you, Lily, for your introduction and your wonderful words. I'm always a bit humbled, right, and a bit shy. I'm not shy, so let me be clear. I'm not shy, but it's always funny when people begin to talk about you and you're standing right there. I'm accustomed because I've been a public figure for a long time of folk talking about me when I'm not there. Right there.
Tush, tush, tush.
Right.
There's a lot in that one. All I can say is,
Right.
hallelujah, take it as you wish.
That's right. Because people talk, people talk. And when they talk. And I'm accustomed to people saying whatever they say, and they don't know me most often. So they're talking about stuff they don't really know. And I'm good with that. I'm not offended by it. But it's always kind of humbling and funny when people talk about you because they're reading your bio or they have some relationship with you. So I'm humbled by what you've said and shared. Thank you. And I'm glad to be here.
I want to have, as I usually do, I don't know if you follow the show, and if you don't, I won't be offended. But I really want to have this really serious, deep, raw conversation, and I dare to have it with you. And I invite the audience to think about what makes you feel alive? Because when you are an activist, whatever, if you're a singer, you're a dancer, you're a musician. So, my father's a musician. Whatever moves you inside. And I thought, I've always had that since I was a little girl. My mother shares a story, which is very funny. She says that I used to steal my daddy's pennies so I can buy ice cream for my friends because I thought I can't be the only one eating ice
Ah,
cream. And so stealing is bad. No stealing, no stealing. But that's how my mother defined it. So the pennies were never to be collected if I was around because I already had them. So you actually know at the core of you what interests you. And you talked in one of the videos, because I have to do my research. In one of the videos, you talked so clearly about, and you did a TED um, you talk so clearly about what's inside of you. We know what's inside of us if we really look, but it's crazy to look in there, Bishop. It
yes,
can be
yes,
scary
yes,
because
yes.
one can find out that we are part of the problem.
Who? Right, right.
Tell us a
Um,
little bit about that, Bishop. To educate
sure.
us, how do we look inside?
So that phrase, actually, I didn't come up with it. As in most things, it's probably not anything new under the sun that I'm quoting from the Bible. Um, that phrase comes to me through Howard Thurman. His actual quote says, and it's probably one of his most famous quotes. Howard Thurman, by the way, was a mentor to Dr. King. In fact, he was a classmate of Daddy King. And when Dr. King went to get his PhD in his graduate school, he was there at Boston at the school that Howard Thurman was the dean of the chapel. And so Howard Thurman was an influencer and a mentor for Dr. King. Dr. King, I'm sorry, Howard Thurman said, "Don't ask what the world needs. Ask what makes you come alive and do that. Because what the world needs is for you to come alive." So that's
Mm,
that's that's what that actual quote comes from. And in the tech talk that maybe you saw and others may see, I talked about the moral instinct. And I
mhm,
believe that each of us has in us, gifted by the divine, the creator, by the universe, has some core stuff. We know what's right and what's wrong. We don't have anybody that needs actually to teach us that. We stumble and fumble our way to it. You touch that stove when it's hot long, a couple of times, you'll know, okay, I need to leave that stove alone. And in fact, you will learn something about what heat does to a body, to skin, right? And then
mhm.
you'll make some assumptions later on about if you get clothes close to it or if you get other things that can catch fire. So I believe we all understand right, wrong, good, and bad. We all have an inner sense of that. If we would slow down enough to understand it, unpack it a bit, and I think that's where this idea comes of seeing inside oneself, reflecting for a moment, pausing, breathing, and then coming to terms with who you really are. Nobody can know who you really are but you. You're the first person to know you. And I believe that that's been gifted to each of us, and it's up to us to figure that out. Because once you figure out who you are, once you figure out what it is that turns you on, what it is that inspires you, what it is that motivates you, what it is that at the end of the day, you say, man, this is me. This what makes me. This churns, this gets me going. This cranks me. And then you'll do that, and you'll contribute to that which is world changing. And that's kind of my operating philosophy. I ask students, because for much of my career, I've been in the academy, I've been in education. in some form or fashion, and in this most recent time at Trinity College. And I often ask them, so students of mine, if you ever see this, you'll know this is really what I did. They'll know. I asked them about who do they see themselves be in 5, 10 years. What does that look like for them? And they'll talk about what jobs they think they'll be doing, what careers they'll be pursuing. And my response to that is that's half right. I ask you about being, you talked about doing.
Oof.
Right. I want to know how you be in the world. What is your aspiration of being? What's your life motto? What is it if you could be anything, what would you choose to be? Because once you get that, then you start toward that, I believe then you become a co-creator with the divine, with the creator, to produce that which you were destined to produce.
Bishop, you've worked in some really tough areas. You've worked in areas that, and I've been around for 31 years, and being a Puerto Rican woman, you get all of these mixed messages. I was born, and you probably maybe had the privilege, and I would say the privilege to meet my godfather, Evan Harold Daniels. And if you didn't, I'm telling you, if you didn't cross paths, I'm so sorry you didn't. And he's one of the founders of Community Health Services. And the reason why I say that is because I grew up in a home where we were taught so many different things. So we always had this melting pot. And then I married a man who's from Honduras, who is not light-skinned like I am, who's done 34 years of service. I know he ain't got this light skin. He did 34 years of service in the Air Force. So we are so eclectic in our families, right? But there is privilege in the visual. And so I want to talk a little bit, because at the beginning, people would hear my accent and it was a little bit healthier at the time. It's gotten unhealthy at the time. And I wish I didn't listen to those folks who helped me get it to that point. I really do. Hence Sofia Vergara. But you are trying to survive in these many worlds that you are put in. But I always knew I was going to be an activist. Communications is my background, but I could not leave a story and not do something about it. Do you know what I mean? So in my car, I had blankets. I had all those things they tell you can't do. I did them. I did them because I could not understand how we were walking away. And a good reporter is able to do that and should be able to do that because that is your job. I failed badly, but that's not my calling, right? So it was kind of God way saying, stupid, I gave you this so you can do something else. But you are in so many different circles and you are a man of God. And you said something that really impacted me because I say this quite often. And I thought, oh, whoa, 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 whoa. I'm no longer alone. Whoa. I'm so tired of sitting in the same circles, coming up with the same plan of action, although we know it no longer serves us.
Mm-hmm.
And you have been brave enough to say, my brothers and sisters, I hear you. However, that does not serve us as we think it does, or it used to maybe at some point, but no longer does. We need a different approach. Black Lives Matter. And when this first started, it wasn't hard for me to understand.
Mm-hmm.
It was not hard for me to understand. But you came from a place, you came from Missouri. This crap was happening in your neighborhood, and your life entirely was impacted by this. We were watching in TV going, what the world? And I'll be kind because you're on the show, Bishop, and my mama is watching me and, she can still hurt me. But I cannot imagine. You know, you mess with my baby and she's 32 and I'm ready to get in my car. You know, my chancleta's coming down. You know, it's like, you know, my slippers are coming with me. I cannot imagine that first phone call and being a man of God and trying to lead people. How does that happen for you? How
Well,
do we do this mess?
yeah, Lily, I don't really know either. Um, where I talk about this most reticently is when April 9th, 2014, life changed in a radical way for me when we got a text from a close brother, friend, uh, um, who texted me saying, the crib is on fire, dot, 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 Ferguson. And so August 9th was the day that Mike Brown was gunned down in Ferguson. I grew up in the town right next door, just west of Ferguson, and the town name is Kinloch. Kinloch was the first chartered town for African Americans in the state of Missouri. And so it was a black town. And today, um, when I remember it, it was a vibrant community of African Americans who were doing it. We had doctors, lawyers, and garbage collectors, and all of the in between. Everybody did everything right,
Mhm.
and we lived all in the same community. And Ferguson was the place that you got out of there before the sun went down. They called those sundown towns. And I tell Connecticut folk all the time, we had sundown towns here. Um, Check your local histories. We had redlining here in Connecticut, West Hartford, Glastonbury, and other places. That these places and spaces, these remnants of the enslavement period and of white supremacy and of race and racism. Uh, they are vestiges of what built this country. And quite frankly, until we tell the truth about that, we may not be able to get to some of the solutions we all want to get to. I want to live in the world in peace. I'm reminded, yesterday, today, got word yesterday that they shot another person in right outside of Minneapolis while the Derek Chauvin case is going on right now. You all remember George Floyd? Year ago, just about a year ago, the United States and the world went upside down over that uh, uh, video that went viral, watching a police officer with his knee on a black man's neck. Here we have another one, and we have had so many: Mike Brown, Trayvon Martin, um, Tamar Rice, Alton Sterling, Philando Castile in the Minneapolis, in the Twin City area, Laquan McDonald, Breonna Taylor. Um, the list goes on. Rakia Board. It goes on and on and on. Emmett Till, for those of you from the 1950s, who I believe, his death and his mother's bravery to show his mangled body, to allow his body to be viewed, to allow the smell to be smelled at the corpse of this, and the disfigured corpse of this bright, brilliant young 15-year-old. That kind of courage moves us and leads us into this whole conversation. And you asked the question, how do we do it? I don't know how we do it. I'm a person of faith, so I'm gonna talk using God language. I think we have grace. And I get mad, I get upset, I lose my cool sometimes. This stuff will wear on you, and yet, um, for me, I come back to a question that here recently, I've been thinking about this a lot. A couple of things. What's going to motivate us to actually what causes change to occur, right? And what decisions do we make in order to set ourselves up for the change we need? And so I want to be a part of that. I want to be a part of a solution bringing, solution making, contributing, so that I leave the world better than when I found it. And so, that means then, I'm in it to win it for the long haul. All right. And
well, Bishop, I have to interrupt you because you have some people here really who love you. And one of the things we do on the show is not use that love and share it. Jose Carlos Vega says you do it because it's in your heart.
Hey,
all right.
Jose.
Oh, he says Jose. He doesn't say Jose, right?
Jose.
Maddie Stolwick is here with us, another woman who's always activating. My buddy Eddie, who's always, we're always having these conversations. Ketsi, who's in Puerto Rico. Yolanda Martinez. And so there are people, Sarah, like I said, there are people who follow your body of work because it's really becoming you have a movement. I mean, you've worked on HIV, AIDS. One of the things that you and I, and we've never sat to have a cup of coffee, y'all. This is what is so important to me. It's just listening to him and following social media or an invitation that I get somewhere, and he might not even see me in the audience, but that mattered to me because I want to hear what's going on. We live in a country that has a lot of mucho dinero. And here, many of us are out there serving food, the Warren Hardys of the world, you, Bishop, and many others, me on Tuesdays, out of my truck. What the world is happening? You're telling me that we don't have the money? I am so tired of having these small conversations behind closed doors. Let's fix the problem. Right now, when we look at shelters and you listen to people, why they won't enter, majority men. I have the privilege to work with a lot of men. And the stories that I hear and that I'm entrusted with pain me. So I know what it is, and I don't lie about it. And, I'm a patient of mental health. I tell the guys all the time, I'm like, hey, I'm with you. I'm with you. I have to take my meds every day. I have to pray not to kill certain people. I'm with you. I'm with you. But we have to do these things with dignity and respect. And sometimes we're just like talking the homeless, the this, the that. No, it's a we, man. At the end of the day, is a we. Where is the we? I heard the other day, I mean, when folks came, and I'm very honest about this, when folks came from Puerto Rico, where I'm originally from, right? I've come from the island of Puerto Rico. We are American citizens. Do you know what we had to fight to even get the Department of Social Services sometimes to respond to the we? We had to get the Vidalis of the world, the Lianis of the world, the Tia Montañez of the world. So, involved to just say, open the freaking door. Right. Open the door. What's the problem? Right. You need an address. We were living out of hotels. So all the work that we did was, in my opinion, unnecessary. Mm-hmm. Had we really been able to say, it's coming and it's coming our way, how are we going to respond? And then I'm going to piss off a lot of people when I say this. They were sitting money. And I get a phone call from someone who I care very much about, who said, if you don't call this person, this money is going to not get to the right people. It took me 2 months to spend the money. It'd been sitting for 8 or 9 months. And so it's not that the money's not there. It's not that the systems are not there. It's how do we get people to understand that we are the people. So, we have all of these pockets and marginalized and so on and so forth. And I had, and I'll let you speak to this, Bishop. The other day I went to Wendy's because I'm tired. I'm too lazy to cook. And my poor husband, he's such a good man. After 20 years, he's like, "Oh, just feed me. I don't care what you feed me." And I live in Bristol, and I get off on one of the exits. And when you get off on this exit, we have a brother there, and he's panhandling. But
Oh,
on the left or on the right, you're gonna hit him if you
mhm,
don't see him. So I park my car, go to him, and I said, "Man, how much money are you gonna make? Do you think you're gonna make here?" He said, "About 20 bucks." I said, "I give you the 20 bucks, just get off."
mhm.
I couldn't live with the fact, and I gave some gift cards because people are very generous to me, but I couldn't live with the fact that he might be on the news in the next 15 minutes, in the next
Oh,
hour, or when I wake up the next morning,
mhm.
right? And the question always is, and I know you get asked this question all the time, Bishop, and I'll let you speak to this. How do I know I'm giving it to the right person? How do I know what they're going to do with it? How do I know? And there's so much judgment in that. How do I know? Why do we need all this control, Bishop? Why do we need it?
Right. Well, I don't know about all that. Let me just tell you what my philosophy is. It's not mine to figure out what people do with what I give. What
Yes.
is mine? What is mine is to give sincerely, earnestly from my heart. And that's what I got to worry about, right? What you do with it, what Julio or Pookie does with that, I I I ain't mine to deal with. But I know when it is, and I'm not always led to give in that kind of way.
Mm. Please explain.
Well, I pay attention to what that thing. Again, it's inside you already. We don't have a need to have a teacher in lots of ways and in lots of things. And I think at our basic, we are connected to all there is. Period. It is our job to access it. And when you access that, then you know right from wrong. You know when to go left and when to go right. So I flow with that far more and I'm far more comfortable these days. The older I get, the more I trust that thing that says,
Me too.
pull over. This is the time to give them this. This is the time. Nah, keep going. Or I don't feel the need or the pressure. Sometimes I do, but sometimes I'm not. But I do know when I get that
Mm-hmm.
up, do
Mm-hmm.
that. And so for me, it's not my job to at the end of the day, yeah, what I'd like for them, not to go down there and buy drugs with the $20 I just gave them. Yes. Will they? Sometimes.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Is
No.
it? Can I stop them?
Mm-mm.
Absolutely not.
I can tell you all that. No, no, no,
That's
no,
right.
no, 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 no.
Absolutely not. And so it's not mine. I take my hands off of. That's God's business. I'm responding to what I believe God has gifted me or shared with me to do, and that's what I want to do.
Bishop, you have stood up for communities that most communities established in religious communities are shying away from having a conversation. The gay, lesbian, transgender community, not giving young people an opportunity to figure out who they are and who they want to love and feel protected and safe. You have been an advocate clearly for women's rights. I mean, you have been an advocate. It's not like you went to the women's march in March. You have been an advocate. You publicly are saying respect people's bodies, respect these women's bodies and their choices. How does that interact with you as a bishop? Do people look at you and go, where are you going? Are you going too far? Because I feel the same way you do. And obviously, I'm so sorry. I'm not comparing because I know we are in different journeys, but I just, I cannot see God saying, "This is not my child."
Yeah, yeah,
How dare you tell me I'm not your child?
yeah.
You know?
Let,
So
let
how
me
do
let,
you do this, Bishop, in your world?
Sure. Everything that I'm engaged in, I'm involved in, it is a faithful response. And I had to wrestle. I had to wrestle with the spirituality and the religion and the traditions that I was gifted with. But also, as I came of age, as I journeyed, I started preaching when I was 8 years old.
Oh,
I was originally ordained at 12, 13 years old. So I was gifted the family business. I come from three generations worth of preachers and bishops. My grandfather was a preacher, and my grandmother, my paternal grandmother, was the musician. So I have their blood running in my veins, the musician and the preacher in my veins. And so I get what it is that I am doing now. I get it honestly. My grandfather and my grandparents were engaged and involved in all kinds of ministry, both inside the church and outside the church. So I'm clear. I am their grandson, quite literally. To know me and to know some of my family is to know my people. And when you know my people, well, I couldn't have been but who I am today, right? But I will say to you, some of the issues and causes that I have found myself on one side of it, others are actually on the other side of it, right? And let me tell you where this comes from. I am informed by this, probably a very simple but profound understanding for me, that God is bigger than any and all of my questions.
mm,
There's not a question. If I believe what it is that I believe about the divine, that then any question, any doctrine, any teaching that I may have encountered growing up, I learned very early on to question it and to see how I come out of it. And so I have to ask why. If it is what it is that I believe, it's got to, one, make sense with my mind,
mm,
because God gave me the mind, right?
mm.
And it starts for me with in the form of questions, and I follow those questions until I find my ultimate end and my ultimate truth, and I realize truth changes. The truths that I had when I was 20,
So
that stuff
true.
gone.
It's so true.
Yeah, and quite frankly,
I go,
that's
what was
what it.
that thinking?
What? I mean, I used to preach and I used to counsel. I used to counsel folk who were getting married, and I didn't have not one iota of a clue as to what I was talking about.
Wow.
I only began to understand what it is to be married when I got married. And all of a
Mm,
sudden, I remembered all that crazy stuff I learned by rote, right, from others that had no experience in it at all. It wasn't based in life experience. And I'll tell you, Lily, one of the other things that helps me to understand what it is that what you're talking about is relationships do that. When you love somebody, you can't dismiss them, even if they are different than you thought or than your religion says they ought to be. So I came to whatever understanding I have about same gender loving folk. Um, it was because my own life story and the relationships that I had, they helped to inform me. When it comes to women, my grandmother and my aunt and my mother and all the women, the superheroes in my life are women. Period. So how dare I? Now I get married and have a daughter and a granddaughter now, and I'm a somehow, yeah, I'm the boss. I'm not the boss of too much of nothing round up in here. Um, for real. And so let me get
my
out the way.
husband would say
Even
the same thing.
that's exactly right.
Mm,
And they will show me who the boss is in a minute. So um, just like with folk who are on the street, um, you know, um, there, but by the grace of God go I. That could be me. And so what I always, it could be me in an instant. If I don't get a couple of paychecks, Lord have mercy. you know, and it's, life is tenuous. Life is a blade of grass for real, right? So I feel in many ways what led me to the understandings that I have, and not everybody would agree with some of the theological or religious positions I've taken. That's okay. I'm good, and you're good too.
Amen.
That's at the same time. I gotta respond at the end of the day to what I believe is right, and I believe there is inherent worth and value to every living creature. Period.
Bishop, this
It's not about what you do. It's who
mhm.
you are.
This is Monday, but in this past week we have had in my little circle that I'm blessed to I received support from you for food. I received, you even bought me shoes and clothes. I mean, I cried. I was a mess on the phone. You're like, child, it's okay. It's okay. I'm like, you don't understand. Underwears these days make me so happy. You don't understand. Socks make me happy. Jose shuts me up every time I get crazy. But um, you did that for me and we didn't know each other. And then I thought, he's not doing it for me. He's doing it for the people. He's doing it for the people. That's who it's going to reach. I have that privilege. But one of the things that I get all the time, and I have to have this conversation over and over. And some days I'm in a good place to have it, and other days, Bishop, I don't know about you, I'm not in a good place to have it. Sometimes I want to say, you know what, you don't get it, come back tomorrow. Maybe tomorrow. Do you know what I mean? Um, how do we, as a community, start having uh, conversations that instead of we're so shy, right? We're so shy. What do I call you, Lily? Puerto Rican, Hispanic, Latinx. And I always say to people, don't spend time on that. Call me by my name. I will tell you who I am. I will tell you what my identity is. Don't worry about it. I will take care of that piece. Do you know what I mean? But people are so
Yes.
focused on, what do I call you? Hispanic. What do I call you? Latina. What do I call you? I'm like, try my name. My name is Livia. Everybody calls me Lily, but my name is Lydia. Constantly you're asking, I'm sure you are with this Moral Monday. This must have been a very, very deep calling for you and the First Lady. Because this is a big project. This is a forever project. I'm sorry. This is
Yeah.
not going to be a 5-10 year see y'all later. This this is gonna this is gonna change the world, and it has already.
Well,
Because
let me
this
tell you.
whole it's I mean, the more I read, I was like, now I got 300 questions. Now I need them back 4 times. Is that Moral Monday? Where does this come from, and
So
and what do we do?
sure, sure. Let me tell you how all of this happened. I talked about Mike Brown and St. Louis. So we went home. Pamela was born in St. Louis as well, and my children were, in fact, were born in St. Louis. That is home for me. And so when that happened, we went home. We were back and forth um, to St. Louis several times, and in fact, we were there during the period of time that the non-indictment announcements came in of both Eric Garner. If you remember, Eric Garner's death happened right before Mike Brown's death happened. But the non-indictment announcement of both the police who were responsible for Eric Garner's death happened a week after the non-indictment announcement occurred in the case of Michael Brown, Darren Wilson. And so we went home in St. Louis, in Ferguson. It was off the chains. My nieces and nephews, as I call them, were in the street, and we were following in. Let's link some things together. The leadership in St. Louis, in Ferguson, were Black queer women. Let me be
Mhm.
very clear. Let me say that again, so for the folk in the back. Black queer women were leading the movement in St. Louis, in Ferguson. All right. So my leaders were were my nieces, right, who were out there, and we were running in behind them. I couldn't even get in the front. As a black preacher, we're accustomed to where the crowd gathers, then we run to the front. Well, I couldn't even. They were moving so fast. I was running in behind them, trying to just keep up, to ensure that if it got frisky, if it got rough, some of us of faith were there to at least lessen the blow, step in there and intervene, pray, use our spiritual force, and to do good in those crisis moments. And so we were back and forth to St. Louis, and I got a call from a colleague here in Hartford, asking, could we, when we got back, could we come to a meeting that was being hosted at another person's spot, church, another faith leader's spot, and talk about, what are the words from the front? Because at that time, St. Louis Ferguson became the front for Black Lives Matter. The hashtags had started a number of years ago, but it took on legs and arms and a thing. It became a thing in Ferguson. And so the conversation ensued. We then I said, several of them said, well, what we do is need to meet with the mayor, need to meet with the police chief. We need to do. And I said to them, when is the last time we did that? And we really got some change. What generally typically happens is we'll get a little bit of something or another, and then it'll be like elastic. It'll go back, to the way it used to be. And I'm not willing to do that anymore. I'm willing to.
Bishop, can you, I'm sorry to interrupt you. Can you use that example again? Because I want everybody to understand that. It goes back to being what?
Goes back to it's like elastic. When you put elastic in, it stretches, but it goes back to the form it was in originally. All right. So no real change occurs. What you did is placated. Right, you placated me, or you placated the community. Couple of people here in Connecticut, in particular, some favorite gatekeepers get a little bit of the goodies, and then they pass them out depending on how related you are to them. I know I'm talking good right now. I'm a preacher, and I'm a black preacher, so every now and then I need an amen. Just
amen.
Right. So those of us who live here know how this goes, right? And so I'm not willing to do that anymore. And we have the weapons of our warfare are not carnal. King James Version of the Bible says, but they're mighty through God to the pulling down of strongholds. We have some weapons. We've been singing and praying and marching, and getting arrested since the year 2. So why don't we go back to employ some of those very tactics? Not that that's the thing. The thing is the change we want to see in the world. However, these tactics are theory, the theory in practice, right? They are hard and fast, true theories and practices. There's a way we do this, that we get change, and we get political change, and we get economic change. That's the change I want to see. I want to see real change happen for us. So I'm willing to, if it then means as a faith leader, we get out here, we get some notice, we get arrested. All right. That helps us then call the attention to the thing we want to cause attention to. It's not the, oh yeah, you're getting arrested, pat myself on the back. No, the arrest ain't the thing. The rest is the, if you will, is the candy. It's the flashy part that gets the media and others to pay attention to the real message. And so that meeting was the very beginning of what we now call Moral Monday Connecticut, Moral Monday CT, which linked a movement that a dear buddy and colleague and friend of mine, Bishop William Barber in North Carolina, had begun a number of years ago. He and a band of clergy, because of the voting rights and the repressive voting rights legislation that was being passed after the second election of President Obama in North Carolina, over 900 faith leaders, clergy and faith leaders, got arrested at the Capitol over a course of a number of weeks on Monday in North Carolina, which began what we now call the Moral Monday movement, right? And so he was very clear that voting rights has something to do with race, has something to do with poverty, has something to do with education, has something to do with housing, has something to do with mass incarceration. So already I've just named 5 or 6 of our issues. These are the issues of our day for Black and brown folk in this country. All right. So I said, why don't we link to that? That seems all right with me, right? Let's link to that. Let's bring our faith to it, but also can't de-link that we're related to this Black Lives Matter moment. And so we thought More Monday, lives at this nexus of Black Lives Matter and the movement for Black Lives, because in Ferguson everybody was there. So I got a chance to meet some of the leaders of the movement before they became celebrities of a certain order, as well as some of the celebrities of our times, some of the folk who were down and who rocked with my nieces and nephews. We were there together. Then we teamed up. We were in Baltimore when Freddie Gray got killed and the insurrection happened there. We went to Cleveland and responded to the work that folk were doing around Tamar Rice. We've been in other places and spaces and cities around this country. We've been on phone calls. We've been on Zoom links. We've been engaging in the work, helping one another, resourcing one another. In 2016, we were invited to with a small group of Black Lives Matter leaders to go to Brazil right before the Olympics. And what came of that, we didn't know. I was like, I'm going to Brazil. Let's go. Right. Mm-hmm. I didn't know it was a thing that we were being invited to. And what came of it, one of the things that came of that is there was the creation of Favela Lives Matter, which is a movement that is based in the Black Lives Matter movement here in this country. So we've been able to be a part of some of what's been going down around this country. I'm thankful to serve. But that's how the More Monday started, and that's what continues to call us. Yes, it's police accountability. Yes, it is police brutality and violence. Yes, it is housing. Yes, it's homelessness. Yes, it's poverty. Yes, it's mass incarceration. Yes, it's economic disparity. Yes, it's employment. I tell you this. Some of the folks that you deal with and some of the folk I deal with, all right, I know to a one would not be doing some of the more illicit things that they are doing if they had a job that would pay them enough money. Because every drug dealer I know, almost, I shouldn't say every, but most that I know, what they really want to do is buy Big Mama a car.
Yeah.
They want them to have a nice place to stay. And then they got a couple of baby mamas. So they want to buy some Pampers and some formula. They want to take care of their family. That's most of them in some way. Most of the guys anyway that I know. And so if we were able to provide for them the means to do that legitimately, instead of, in some other ways, they would choose to do that in many instances. So we Houston, Hartford, New Haven, Bridgeport, New London, we got a problem. And we got a problem because poor people in neighborhoods like the North End or in Frog Hollow, where there are persons of color, Black and brown folk in particular, where they have the lack of access to stuff and the things that make for a quality of life. I believe if we are able to address some of those needs and circumstances, we will end up with a better, more what I would call peaceful and more a more humane way to live and be, quite frankly. And so that's where we work at that nexus. And so what calls us every day all the time, into the work, into the streets, at the Capitol. I got arrested at the Capitol here in Connecticut. We got arrested at the Capitol for singing and praying. That's my arrest
Well,
at the
why would
Capitol.
you do that at the Capitol in the first place? Why would you do that at the Capitol in the first place?
I'm a preacher. That's what we do. We sing and pray, and we do
My
it out.
hair is
We do it
turning
out
gray.
loud.
My hair's turning gray already. We
I
don't have
was
a lot
telling.
of
I was
time, but
telling.
I
Sure.
have to. Um, if you guys don't know about the work that Bishop's doing, I'm surprised. But if you don't, you have to look it up. And what the First Lady is doing also, who's a kind and generous. I hear her voice and I'm like, okay, okay. She just has that kind of impact on me. I'm like, okay, I will behave, mama. Um, and I also have never had a cup of coffee with her or anything like that. But time is never on our side. But I just want to say this: you are looking at the child of a recovering alcoholic in his 60s. I love my daddy. Papa te amo. I was there and I love I love my daddy like the best candy you can give me in the world. I love my mama. So when people talk about addiction, this is not the face you usually look at. These are the tears. This is taking daddy out of a bar. This is, trying to make sure he didn't get killed. This is, and so when you talk, you don't know who is in the room that has bled and is still trying to heal or is dancing and rejoicing because their loved one has healed. And my father's very public about, hey, son, come here. Let me tell you. Hey, son, come here. Let me tell you. Hey, son, come here. But he's over there at the North End all the time. And aquí me quedo, he's 5:30 in the morning. He's in his seat, you know? And so it's very important that we start having these conversations and not looking at, and I always say this, when you look at me, you don't think of somebody with a brain injury. You don't think of somebody who suffered of depression. You don't think of somebody who's been in a psych unit 7 times. I have. So when I talk to you about what it is to be invisible, I know in my skin how it feels to be invisible. I remember being in a psych unit, Bishop. I'll never forget this. I am not a cereal person. I just didn't grow up with cereal. I don't know what was going on in my house, but we didn't grow up with cereal, or maybe we didn't. I don't remember. The only one I like was Fruit Loops, which is probably the worst one for you. But the only one I like. So this day, I found my voice. Things were really bad. I was in a coma. Blah 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 blah. And I remember asking these nurses who were at this, like round thing going on. They were talking about their vacation, showing their pictures. Good for them. All I wanted was some cereal. I was hungry. And to hear me say, I'm hungry, it was shocking because eating was not part of my life, you know? And I remember this woman looking at me and going, you have to wait. I said, but I can see the cereal. I was like a little 5-year-old. I can see the cereal from here. She said, you have to wait. And for a second there, I saw myself coming back where I said, no, you have to wait. Put your pictures away. Give me the box of cereal. And for 30 seconds, I don't know if I wanted the cereal anymore by that time because I was so angry. But this is the kind of treatment that we don't understand that people are receiving in centers that are receiving a lot of money. The 211 system, I love my brothers and sisters who work there, but it does not represent or supply what our people need. You cannot have Officer Barrett call 211 at 3:00 in the morning when he finds someone. Okay. And we've had this conversation where he'll call me and he'll say, okay, I had a little donation here. Let's put them up somewhere just for the cold. So Bishop, what in your thoughts, and I know it's very short, and please come back because we need a lot more conversation. I think this is what we need is conversation. I can interview you and do a beautiful interview, but I need your knowledge, so I'm being selfish. I need knowledge. Because right now I'm working out of my trunk and I'm very happy that Hands on Hartford has allowed me to do that. But I walked away from something that didn't mirror what my heart said I would needed to be doing. And I walked alone. And my brothers and sisters have stepped up, including you, Bishop, if I may. I called you one day and I said, I have moved location. And you said, okay, so what's the new location?
Right.
It's like, no explanation. You were like, no, what's the new location? We could talk later. And there I received my food, which is so vital and so important. The Muslim community has done, my brothers and sisters have done the same thing. They bring me the food. Do you know what I mean? The Jewish community has done the same thing. So this separation that we're building into people, we're part of the barrier. We're part of the problem. I have grandchildren. I have a 14-year-old and I have a 1-year-old grandchild. My 14-year-old has a lot of questions. And she ain't as light as I am either. So she has a lot of questions. We're having difficult conversations with our grandchildren. This is not the world I want for my babies. I don't want to leave them in this world. But already they have seen so much at the age of 14. My granddaughter has seen so much. So much. What can we do? How do we begin, Bishop, to get closer to having these conversations? What forums should we be in?
Well, I can tell you this, following people like you, go to moremondaysct.org. That's our website, and follow us at any of our social media platforms. We're on all of them. There are, and we're partnered with other groups and organizations and other individuals who are like-minded. And so, and there are a number of us who are here who are quietly, they don't make a lot of noise. Every now and then I'm on the TV. So, we're doing something and so it gets a little notice in the paper or on the television. But there are many, many more people who are out there quietly like you. And what we want to do is be in relationship with folk like that so that we can, in fact, be one conduit of information sharing and providing. And so that's what I would say. I would also say, and my folk would be mad at me if I don't say that we are at least one good organization. That when you give your gifts go right to the folk that are needed. We if I could tell a quick story, I know we run out of time.
No. I'm not running out of time. I just promised you an hour, so I don't want to take away from you.
The conversation began. We pulled together a group of folk a year ago when the pandemic was upon us, and so we pulled together a group of activists and organizational leaders and folk that's out there and saying, "Listen, hey, we need to respond in some way. What are the needs?" And it kept coming out. People need food. People are going to need somewhere to stay. People are going to need their rents to be canceled. They're going to need mortgage payments, and they're going to need food and technology. So those were the three things. When we went to remote learning, kids who heretofore then went to school, now they needed computers, they needed Wi-Fi, they needed to get access. And so we responded and tried to do a little bit of all of it. But what became very clear is that there were a number of families that we could maybe do something, to help. And so I went to my friends at Trinity College and dining services there, along with two other partners in the work, the college chaplain and our community engagement person, and said, "Hey, here's my idea. What do you all think?" They got behind it, and we raised some money, and our dining service group, and shout out to Toby and the folk at Trinity College, at Chartwell's Trinity College, who actually do the work. He said, "Listen, we'll charge you cost. Your costs would be the cost of the food and what it goes in, and we will do it, pro bono." So all of the preparation, and what I wanted was to do hot meals, right? That was one, but also, or that could be recooked, heated up, right? And to do it not just a one-time shot, not now. Of course, something is better than nothing in some cases. In some case, I'll say it again. In some cases, because it's not always cool to. Anyway, that's another whole message right
Oh,
there.
I hear you.
Right, but for me, it needed to be something that has some sustainability, and our original ask was, could we do something for 20 weeks? And so feeding 2020 became the moniker for us, where it happened to be the year 2020, but also we landed on, we could feed 20 families twice a week, right? And each meal feeds 4 or 5 people. And so for 20 weeks, we committed to doing that. And as of the end of next month, it will be 1 year
Yes.
that we've done it. And um, I want to raise some more money because I want to continue to do it. If you'll continue to have it, and we have identified your organization, your work, and for other works that receive those donations on a weekly basis, and to feed a couple of hundred folk a week with warm, hot food, professionally made, with a lot of love and with a lot of regard. I can't help but say thank you, and thank you to the good folk that help us do that. We don't do it by ourselves. I don't cook. Pamela cooks. She's a cook. My kids know I do stir fry deluxe. I do all kinds of manner of stir fry, but that's about it. I'm not really the cook, but I have a lot of tenacity, and so and I can beg on the regular. I'm a preacher. I know how to beg. And
I tell
so
people, I'm the professional beggar. I am not going away. I will come back every week.
me too, me too. You and I have that in common because I will beg
I'm
too.
coming back next week.
And I'm not begging for myself. At the end of that is I want to do something for the folk, and I've learned here in Connecticut, been here now 21 years. I've been here 21 years. We don't do things big. We do it small. And I understand that little small thing, the small things are the things sometimes that have lasting value. And so I would encourage everybody, if you want to do something, commit to doing that thing that motivates you and that moves you. And it may not be a big thing, and you may not get your name in lights, and you may not get an award for it. Listen,
And that
at
brings
the
their
end,
own headaches. You may not want
that,
any
that
of those things.
that's right. That's exactly right. And at the end of the day, it's not. It's better left over there. But at the end of the day, I can go to sleep at night. I go to sleep every night knowing that I have done what I believe, God, you've called me to do. And I've done it with a sense of respect and dignity, to bear witness to the suffering of people. I believe. Lastly, I believe suffering, one, is redemptive, right?
Mm.
And that one of the ways in which we actually become human, right, and we live more humane in our own lives, is that we understand that we are together, human, and with the ability to experience pain and loss. We are each other. I will say this: Dr. King, in his letter from a Birmingham jail, and for me, that's my fifth gospel. If you're a Christian follower of Jesus, there are four gospels: Matthew, Mark, Luke, and my namesake John. Um, uh, but for me, my fifth gospel is Dr. King's letter from a Birmingham jail. And in that letter, he says we are woven together in a common garment of destiny.
Mm.
You know, here's where we get at the end of that. He says, injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. I sit by idly in Atlanta and get a call to come help brothers and sisters here in Birmingham without at least giving some thought to how might I help, and developing the strategy for help. We are, the question gets asked, am I my brother or sister's keeper? The answer to that question is absolutely you are. Absolutely you are. We are connected. We are one human family. It just so happens that human family started in Africa. Thank you very much. I'll keep it moving.
Hey, I'm Puerto Rican. We have a lot of that to talk about.
lot of that. We all come out of that common ancestor. We all have a common ancestor. Lucy, they found her in East Africa. I'm just saying.
Hey, my girl Jasenia is here, and she's an expert in Puerto Rican history. So she'd be like this.
That's right. So we are connected, and so let's find ways. I mean, in the simplest, unsophisticated way. We don't have to make this a big old deal. We can do this. We can just help each other. If that means I have a person, that's my guy. He's my guy. He's my guy. And for 20 years, 21 years, I've known him since we arrived here in Connecticut. And he knows he can call me and I'll respond. And we've had lots of he's had lots of transition in his life. He is I won't call his name. He might see this and be embarrassed. But he knows who I'm talking about. And he's my guy. And there's nothing I wouldn't do, and if I can, to be with him, to assist him in every way that I can. And I'll tell you what motivates me. Lastly, I had a moment where I believe I heard, almost an audible voice that said that said to me. And then this audible voice made me remember a passage of the gospel. That's very important to me. When Jesus is, as he's in a teaching with his disciples, and he says, when I was in prison, you came to see me. When I was hungry, you fed me. When I was naked, you clothed me. And then the disciples said, teacher, when were you naked or hungry or in prison? And then he says, when you have done whatever you do, when you do it to the least of these, you've done it to me. And so I'm always reminded that anybody at any given time, all of us, in some way, form, or fashion, have been the ones standing without. We have been the least of these. I wouldn't be who I am if it weren't for those loving women who cared for me, who loved me, who wiped my nasty behind and fed me and took care of me, who made it possible that I don't remember ever being told you can't in my life. Not from my family, not from the community I grew up in. Now I heard you can't outside of that, in lots of spaces and places. But I got, all I got was affirmation. Baby, you can do it. You can do it. You can be it. You can attain it. So all I know is dream it up and make it happen. Make it happen, Captain. And so for me, that's what motivates me. I have been helped by those who have championed my cause when they didn't necessarily have to. And so I feel like that's just what we ought to do, is get in there and do it. And Lily, your heart speaks to, can't tell now for no reason, because your heart speaks to a kind of thing that is a connection. And people by not by what you see presenting for the most part. You see them, you know them, you are connected and attracted to those folk and personalities for lots of reasons. But I believe we are connected to some folk because we know them after the spirit. We know them after something that goes way past their good looks, their hooked up hairdo, right? Or the clothes that they wear, or the cars they drive, or the money they roll with. We know them beyond that. We know them that those are superficials in some ways. And I believe we know each other after spirit. And the connection that we have is a spirit connection. And I believe, again, here we go back to where we began. this idea that we spend the time to get to know what's inside of us. That thing that's the very essence of who we are as spirit. The very core of who we are is something that's very real, but very ethereal. Very, it's not tangible, yet it is everything. Right? It's the way in which that satisfies us in ways you can't explain. I love Doritos. I love Dorito chips. I love them. Love them. There's nothing like a Dorito in life. I need to lay off the Doritos because it ain't good for the weight and my health these days. But the joy
Don't
that
pass
I
by
have.
my joint because I always have Doritos.
That's right. But the very
It's a
joy that we
staple where
have,
I'm at.
it's a staple where I am too. But the very essence of who we are, that there is the only satisfying of it is when we respond to that very core. And that's for me, that's everything. It is that response that I hope I want to be faithful to that to the best of my ability, as long as I live my days.
Bishop, we can spend lots of times. I hope you will come back. I know
I
that
will.
we do some Zoom events just so people can really have conversations. We've gone through this. We're in the midst of the pandemic. I tell people all the time, I've been vaccinated. Our family has chosen to. If I get a better chance to survive this animal, my husband and I both got sick. He got it worse than I did. And let me just tell you, when you have a partner, I've been blessed with a partner for over 20 years who's my buddy, who allows me to be as crazy and as wild as I am when I go out there with my ponytail, no makeup, and I don't look this way. It still says, yeah, I love her. I claim her. And he got pretty sick on me. And it was one of the most scariest moments. And I've had quite a few in my life. And so it touches home. So imagine folks who don't have that loved one to check their temperature, to be there with them. And most of the people that I have the privilege to work for, because I always tell them I work for you guys, don't get it twisted. You guys are really my bosses. It's about constant learning. And so when you please stop and listen to people, just listen. If you can't do anything else, shut down and listen. Even if you go away with 30 questions, I promise, I don't know about you, Bishop, but I promise the answer is coming. Not when we want it, not how we want it. The messenger sometimes is weird.
Right.
Weird. Because I'm like, okay, you have the answer. Okay, that's interesting. But I beg everybody at this point to watch out for one another. Here we have Molly Tostado also and she hates because she's pretty shy to be a politician. She's really shy. And she's always looking out for the community as well. So I think that we need to break those barriers. And one thing that I really want to thank you and the First Lady is when I clearly said, I'm not a nonprofit, I'm a movement. You said so. Because I always want people to know this is a movement for me. This is a movement, and the movement changes. Once it was Puerto Rico, the other one was women who were being abused. Now the one is all together. And 90% of the people that I serve are men. And to hear that men trust me with some stories that sometimes I want to be their sister, sometimes I want to be their mama, sometimes, you know what I mean? Like, you need this hug. And so the basics, back to listening, back to loving, it's a verb. I tell people all the time, love is a verb. It doesn't happen on Monday, doesn't happen on Tuesday, doesn't happen on Wednesday. It happens all the time. So Reverend, thank you for showing us this love. Keep teaching, keep preaching, keep us straight, keep us together in
To
some
the best
way.
of my ability. To the best of my
I
ability.
have charged you with this. I'm sure the First Lady's gonna be like, "Why is she asking you for more stuff to do?" And
We're thankful for the connection that we have with you and with others, and we promised it. Like I said, I'm in it to win it for the long term, and at the end of the day, I want our peoples to be blessed by it. Right.
Amen. Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank
Thank
you. Thank
you.
you.
Thank
And
you,
if you
Lil.
all have questions for Bishop, for moral, what they're doing, please, 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 please look up the websites. Go in there. $1 makes a difference. Promise you, $1 makes a difference. I
It
go to the
does. It
dollar
does.
store. $1 makes a difference. No, I'm not joking. The dollar store, they see me, they're like, "Oh man, we don't have enough cards for you." So everything makes a difference. So whatever you got and you want to share it from the bottom of your heart, you do not have to be the one who purchased it. You don't have to be the one who takes it. You don't have to be that person. Do whatever feels hot inside, is what my grandmother would say. If it bothers you, you got to do something about it. That's what my grandmother used to say. God bless you, Bishop. Thank you so much for everything you do, and the First Lady and all of those that walk with you. Do not
Thank you very
abandon us.
much. Won't do it. Won't do it. Lydia. Won't
Muchas
do it.
gracias. Muchas gracias. Muchas gracias.
All righty.
Now, buenas
Bless you
noches.
too. All righty.
Amen. I'm going on to Instagram for all of you that liked for me to answer those personal questions that people, for some reason, like to ask me. I'll be on Instagram in about 5 minutes. God bless you all. See you next Monday.
Peace.
Peace.